Covered Go Blue is a well-known Magic the Gathering YouTuber. The self-proclaimed one in Best of One, CGB has many years of experience across all sorts of different formats within Magic.
Yes! I'm blue, da-ba-dee-da-ba-da.
You know what he has zero experience in? Marvel Snap. Can an expert in arguably the most complex card game properly evaluate cards in Marvel Snap having never played the game? Let's find out. I prepared 7 Marvel Snap cards for CGB to rate. And I've designed a special rating system to make sure we keep track of the cards that he gets right and the ones that he gets wrong. The tiers are NPC, home to the most unplayable garbage cards. Gluten-free bread, for cards that may have a niche use, but will most often let you down. Smartphone, the mainstream tool, the mainstream tier. Good meta-defining card to go here. And for those that are just downright broken and need to be nerfed, we have the Dr. Manhattan tier. Yeah, I used the DC character for that one. Problem. For each card, CGB will have to pick one out of these 4 tiers. But wait, there's more. Out of today's 7 cards, I've included 2 mystery cards that are old versions of themselves when they were beyond broken. Will our guest be able to spot them? Let's do this. Hello there, everybody. This is a bit of a weird intro, but let's just go ahead and say hello to the one in Best of One who is joining us for the first iteration of whatever we're gonna call this series, in which I'm gonna have fellow card gamers come in and rate cards from a card game that perhaps they're not that knowledgeable about. Say hello, CGB, Covered Go Blue. Nice to have you, man.
Hi, it's me. It's CGB. I'm the first one here. Oh God, I'm the guinea pig. What's gonna happen? I don't know.
CGB, why don't you tell us what your current knowledge is of Marvel Snap? Because you are, in case you guys don't know, CGB, I mean, I've said this in the intro already, he is an MTG expert. He is the greatest player in Best of One, according to him. You know, the good old trust me bro source. And yeah, I want to see those skills. I want to see that card game knowledge. But first, like, do you know anything about Marvel Snap?
I played a game of Commander with Ben Brode. It's true. No, he was like telling me all about it. I hadn't released yet. I played a game of Commander with him. He wouldn't stop talking about it. But that's what I know. I know that you snap at your opponent at some point when you're really sure you're gonna win. That's what I know. That's it. I know no cards. They're not gonna believe me.
This is gonna be amazing, actually. You know, because a lot of MTG players are always like, oh yeah, we play the most complex card game. You know, we're just the smartest of all card gamers. I'm totally applying this to you, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
As if you think like that. And I'm really curious to see what you can make up from the card lineup that I have for you guys, for you here. You are, in fact, only one individual. Let's run down some of the basic rules of Marvel Snap, so you're not completely dead in the water, though. I think that's probably a decent idea. It's quite simple, really. You have 3 locations, okay? And you have cards. You have a total of 6 turns. Every
6
turn.
Turns?
Yeah.
6?
Every turn.
Okay. That's so few. That's not very many.
I'm already losing you here. You have, in fact, 6 turns, and you have a deck comprised of 12 cards. All right. I know that seems kind of wild, like 12 cards, but yes, decks have 12 cards, and cards have 2 numbers appointed to them. One is their energy cost, and the other number is the power cost. The energy cost comes in blue, and it's on the top left, and it basically is how much it costs for you to cast the card. I mean, you've seen cards from Hearthstone, so it's pretty much the same idea. Instead of energy, it's called mana over there, like in Magic the Gathering. You know, you have 1 energy turn 1, 2 energy turn 2, 3 energy turn 3, 4, 5, 6, onwards until the last turn, which is turn 6. Unless you have, some mechanisms to gain extra energy, you'll be following this energy/mana curve throughout the game. So far, so good, right?
Yeah, easy.
Got it. Easy peasy. So the power is essentially the stat. In other card games, you have maybe like power and toughness. You have strength and health. Like the names do differ, but in Marvel Snap, are you familiar with the game Gwent?
Only in name.
Only in name.
I have no idea how it works.
It's similar because it's also a card game that revolves around 1 stat. In this case, power. So how do you win in Marvel Snap? You have to win 2 out of 3 locations. And you win a location by having more power in it than your opponent.
Okay.
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 Good, right? Like I think, how am I? You know, rate 1 out of 10. How am I doing as a teacher here? Like, how am I imparting this knowledge? Am I doing a good job?
You're a 10 out of 10 until I get one wrong.
Okay. I love it. Okay, yeah.
The comments. Post a 1 to 10.
That's terrible. Terrible for my ego, but I'll take it. Oh yeah. Yeah, basically you have 12 cards in your deck, and they have, they cost a specific amount of energy, and they have a specific amount of power, right? And the more power you have in each location, the better. You want to win 2 out of 3. Now, some cards sacrifice raw stats and power for strong abilities, and I think that's pretty much all you need to know, really. Good?
Wow, that's it. Okay.
One last thing, because it may be important.
Okay.
Every location, you can have 4 cards maximum in that location. So there is a maximum slot of cards you can have in said location, and that is 4. So you have a total of 12 slots, because there are 3 locations, and again, you want to win 2 out of these 3 locations, but you can only have a total of 4 max cards within each location. So it's important you can't just dump like 7 cards into the same location, for example. There is a limit, and this does factor into some strategies, right? That can maybe try to remove some or take over some slots from you. You know, like there are mechanisms that can potentially leave you with less space to play your cards. And I think that's all you need to know. How are you feeling? How's that confidence, CGB?
It looks really, honestly, it looks straightforward. I guess my question is this Hearthstone where you don't do anything on the opponent's turn, or is there ways to kind of cheat
You play
that?
simultaneously.
What?
That is the thing about Marvel Snap. You and your opponent play each turn simultaneously. You will not reveal your cards until your opponent reveals them. So you both lock in your plays, and once both plays are locked in, you both will reveal what you played. So you don't know where your opponent is placing their cards until you place yours.
What's your turn timer?
Honestly, like, games are short. Like, Marvel Snap games are like between 5 and 8 minutes.
Okay.
Max.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how much you have each turn, but you not much more than like 30 seconds.
Like 30 seconds? Like okay. Ooh,
honestly,
okay.
I should know this. I should know this, especially being a perpetual roper as I am. But I just don't. I'm not sure of the exact, but it's not a lot. All right?
Hey.
Keep in mind.
Content creators can't be ropers, all right? We are educators. We're using our...
We're just deep thinkers.
Yeah,
We're deep thinkers,
not
and
ropers.
I am so tired of this discrimination.
Yes.
Especially you have no idea the amount of that kind of stuff that I've had to deal with in TFT videos, where people just post this grandpa Pepe emotes on my chat.
Yeah, they don't understand.
As if I have to be 19 I have a 19-year-old brain and just go turbo that is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of hatred going on in that regard, but I think Marvel Snap, you'll see, is a game that does in fact give you enough time to think out your plays, unless you have delayed thinking.
Brain. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's see how fast your brain can come up with a ranking for these cards, though.
Okay.
We got 4 tiers. We have mentioned them in the intro. We got NPC, gluten-free bread, smartphone, and Dr. Manhattan. Yes, I chose a DC character to piss Marvel fans off. Yes,
all right,
exactly.
Good. Make them rage.
Here we go. Round 1. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do this. The first card is a card known as... Wait, did I just... Okay, I thought I clicked on the wrong one. We got Daken. We got Daken. Daken is a 3 energy, 4 power card. All right, it costs 3 energy. It has 4 power, and it has an on-reveal effect. On-reveal means, well, as soon as the card reveals. It's an upon-entry effect, essentially. And the effect says, add the Murashama Shard to your hand, which is a 1 energy, 1 power card that you see right next to it. You see this, correct?
Yeah, I see the shard.
And, okay. The Murashama Shard is a 1 energy, 1 power card that says, when this is discarded or destroyed, double Daken's power. In case you're wondering, yes, I chose perhaps one of the most inherently complex cards within the game to start things off. I'm a bit of an asshole, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay,
but,
okay.
Yeah. I wanted to start off strong. I think it's a really interesting card, and I want to see your take on it.
Sure. Okay, first card.
Any questions? You can throw any questions at me.
Yeah. Let's see. first question I have, as this is literally the first Marvel Snap card I've ever read. How common is it for?
I feel terrible, man. Okay, continue.
How common is it for a card to also bring another card?
There are definitely options within every single like curve, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not something that it's extremely common.
Okay.
I'd say, but it's definitely way less common than in other card games. In case if you're wondering, like it is definitely something that most cards are not really able to do.
Okay, I'm probably going to have to ask some questions about the combat system and how it breaks down. Because
anything. I want to make sure that there are no excuses for when you fail.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. So you pay 3 for this. You put it at a location.
Exactly.
And then let's see.
So you play you pay 3 mana. Let's say you play this in the middle location, right?
Yeah.
You pay 3 energy.
Yeah.
Then your opponent has made their play as well. Once both plays are locked in, both cards will reveal at the same time. Well, actually, that's not true because one player has priority over the other. So the player who is ahead will flip over first.
Interesting.
But one flips over, and then when the card flips over, the on reveal effect triggers. So this will flip over. It will put 4 power into the location because as long as the card is there, right? It will have 4 power into the location, and you will be adding the Murasama shard into your hand.
Now, so this is like both players are revealing at the same time. So this is kind of like the resolution of a turn, right? Let's call it turn 3
exactly.
for fun.
It is the resolution of that turn.
Okay.
Yes.
So you can't play the sword and get or shard rather. You can't play the shard and get that effect that turn. You have to do it on a future turn.
No, absolutely not. Very good question. Oh, we're seeing that MTG brain, that one of best of one in action here. Yeah, that's a good assessment. Exactly. You cannot play the Murasama shard the very same turn you flip over Daken. So unless you're able to somehow, because some location allows you to, or because something else, unless you're able to ramp into Daken somehow, you're able to generate some energy to play him perhaps on turn 1 or 2, which is very, it's mostly unlikely, right? You will not be able to do anything with the Murasama shard until turn 4 onwards.
Okay, and how are ways that the shard or Daken could be destroyed?
All right, so destroying Daken is very difficult because destroy effects in Marvel Snap are generally, it's easier to destroy cards that are 10 power or bigger because there are dedicated counters to those cards. But when you have like cards that are below that threshold, the resources to just like directly destroy Daken, it would be rough. There are ways to like debuff him, like if he does double his power through Murasama, there are some cards that could counter that later down the line. But generally speaking, Daken, the card itself is pretty safe.
Okay.
When you play it on curve, the card itself will be safe. There are counters that could happen. For example, there is a 3-drop that has an ongoing effect that essentially prevents on-reveal effects from happening in that location. So if your opponent has initiative over you, and they preemptively played this, they expect you to play Daken onto some location for some reason, they could shut that down. But I'd say that 95% of the time you play Daken, his on-reveal effect is going to resolve. And
how do you destroy or discard the shard? Like, what are methods to doing that?
There are 2 different, these are 2 keywords that are quite prevalent in the game. There are cards that discard cards. There are cards that specifically discard the weakest or the lowest cost card in your hand. And in exchange, you get like solid stats, right?
Okay.
Like, for example, there's a 2-drop called Colleen Wing, which discards the lowest cost card in your hand upon entry, but is a 2 energy, 4 power card. So 4 power for 2 energy is a little bit above average.
Okay.
It's just a really good stat line for that. Though it can be matched by other 2-drops, but it's generally like, it's a beefy 2-drop that has technically a downside, but if combined with Daken, but then you have to consider the fact that if you want to combine it with Daken like that, you can't be playing the Colleen Wing on turn 2. You have to wait until turn 4 to play her. So you have to chain her with something else. So you have to factor these things in. There are some discard element, like there's a lot of discard cards in the game. Blade, for example, is a 1-drop that will discard the card at the rightmost side of your hand. which is where your new cards go.
Okay.
But when you generate Murasama Shard, keep in mind that the next turn you will be top decking a card, and it'll be on the right side over the shard.
Okay.
So you have to play that first before discarding that. Like that's an example, right? Of like discard synergies for this exist, but they're they can be clunky, they cannot be clunky. You know, it depends on the structure of your deck.
And how about destroying it? How do you use it?
And destroying it, you would play it, and then you can destroy it with something like a Carnage, who eats the cards in his location to get +2 power. So the destroy is an archetype within Marvel Snap in which some cards, there's fodder, right? Cards that you want to be destroyed, and there's cards that will destroy cards and get benefits off of destroying that. Carnage will get +2 for every card destroyed in the location it's played. Venom will just literally absorb the power of the cards that he's eating. And then there's a card known as Killmonger, who is a 3-drop as well. It's a 3 energy, 3 power card that on reveal destroys all 1-cost units on the board.
Ooh.
Yours and your opponent's.
Okay, interesting. So it's sounding to me like the first thing I think when I see stuff like this is creatures and magic, right? And it doesn't sound like these characters die the way that creatures do in Magic. You know, like it's not just as common as like every creature you play, I play removal, right? It sounds like there's a lot more heroes that get on the board, they stick on the board.
Cards stick on the board more often than not. Yes.
Okay, interesting. And combat-wise, it doesn't sound like there's like a combat phase where they attack each other. It's about having the best stats in the location.
It's just about having more strength, more points than your opponent in 2 out of 3 locations.
Interesting.
So
okay.
So the payoff for digging here is obviously you do want to be getting rid of the Murasame Shard, either through discard or destroying it, and you will be able to double its power. Just so you have a reference for the vanilla stat line for like a 3 energy card, I'd say is around like 5 or 6. You know, like there's a lot of good ones that have 5 power and a good ability, but not like a crazy ability. You know what I mean?
Okay. 5
is already a respectable stat line. Respectable, not amazing. Respectable stat line to develop for 3 energy. You know, and obviously doubling this to 8 power is pretty decent in that sense. But
all right, I'm ready to cook.
Okay.
All right. So what we have here is basically a stats war and it sounds like a little bit of a value war, right? Because if you have more things that make more stats, then you're gonna win. So good old card advantage, right? And this is a card that comes with a card that also can increase stats by discarding it or destroying it, which can create more positive stats somewhere else. So it seems like an excellent synergy piece and card advantage together. It's really tricky on the very first look. It seems like if you're paying 3 for 4, that's good, and then if you turn that into 5 for 8, that's probably very good. That's like my first impression, is that this is probably a lot of what the card game is about. Because if it were just about pay this, put this stats on a thing, that gets dull if you're not finding synergies and ways to go over the top of your opponent. So right away, I'm like, this is probably at some point in the game was an important card. That's my first impression, because it just seems like this is what the game's about. This is what the combat and location system is about. So I got to pick one of 4 tiers, which is really hard, and I'm going to give myself grace. If I screw it up on the first go, I'm still going to learn a lot going forward. It's really hard to call this an NPC. It doesn't seem like that's going to be right. Gluten-free bread. I have no idea if there's a better version of this, but the fact that you showed it to me first, only an absolute monster would do such a thing. So I'm going to move away from gluten-free bread. Smartphone meta-defining. Not necessarily unhealthy. Maybe. Dr. Manhattan. Utterly broken. That depends on the frequency of these kinds of effects, which I think I still have to learn about, and just their raw potency, the raw potency of stats. Like I'm not asking you this because I don't want you to tell me yet, but it depends on how many raw doublers are like in the game. You know what I mean? As well as the synergy pieces, which it sounds like the synergy pieces exist. For my first shot, I'm gonna call this. I'm gonna call this a smartphone. It seems like the kind of thing that's healthy for the game because you get an extra piece that you manipulate into synergy that creates what you need. I think that this is the kind of thing that makes the game click. So I declare this card, Daken, and your shardy shard mimosa here, a smartphone.
The shardy shard mimosa. Go on.
I do.
Smartphone.
Yeah, smartphone.
Okay, I'm a monster. The more you spoke, the more I felt like just I feel so bad. Because
no, you don't.
Because no. Hear me out. Okay, so like your thought process was excellent. Like I'm gonna give it to you. Like honestly, like it was really solid. I wanted to start off with a bit of. I was a little bit intimidated. So I'm like, I'm gonna put a rough one.
Okay. You set the table. That's okay. That's okay.
But the more you were talking, the more like, oh my god, I'm such a dick. Yeah, no, this falls into gluten-free bread. Though your logic is.
Look at that physique. There's nothing gluten-free going on.
I mean, to be fair,
probably.
no.
Yeah, actually, there is.
Actually, like I think that's the kind of physique you get if you don't eat that much bread.
Yeah,
so,
you're right.
You know, and you
known.
inherently eat less bread if you like gluten-free bread. So, or you have to eat that. So
clearly, the more ripped, the more gluten-free. You're right.
Yeah. Okay, let me clarify some things. So first of all, while the description of gluten-free bread like implies that it's just strictly a worse version of something else, that's not exactly what this card is. This card is a very unique card. Right, you were onto something that, you know, cards that generate cards, and especially if that's something that's just not very common, have a lot of potential within Marvel Snap. But at the same time, I do believe that because Marvel Snap's game length is overall shorter, there are cards that are more impactful in this area because they actually give you cards. One of the weird things about Daken, and the reason why, you know, Daken hasn't really been a meta-defining card, even though on paper it's very promising, is because it falls under two different archetypes that just have better options. Like, it's a card that's trying to split itself within two archetypes, which are discard and destroy, which are generally very, very specific. Like most cards, he just posted bread. That's a bad bread. Well, I feel awful, but at the same time, you know, who knows? Like maybe you're one of those people that, you know, you get off of a win and then you're just absolutely insufferable. So, you know,
yeah.
I can have potentially prevented that. So,
okay.
You know, I'm not trying to stay positive with this, but I definitely do agree that I'm a bit of a monster because this is, you know, for somebody outside the game, you know, it's easy to look at this card and just be like, wow, this has a lot of potential. But in practice, the issue is, first of all, discard decks. Like I mentioned the example before, I mentioned some low-cost discard cards that you generally would prefer to be playing on curve. But with Daken, you just can't really do that a lot of times. You want to be playing Daken on 3 and then having a way to discard the Morisama Shard. I have definitely explored a lot of deck builds with this card. This is a card that I really like, which is why I led with it. I've definitely built a lot of decks with it and failed miserably with it more often than not. Because when it comes to the discard synergies, there are just better options. Like, for example, there's a 4-drop that, you know, if you discard it, it just plays itself onto the board, and it has 7 power, right? So there are stronger...
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Hey, honestly, like, no shame on you. If this is literally, like,
Holy shit.
I feel like a demon, like, showing, like, this being the first Marvel Snap, like, the first Marvel Snap card you ever see. You know, it's definitely.
No,
but yeah, when it comes to discards, the options are just, you know, there's just better options to just synergize directly, and it's better to just generally have cards that want to be discarded from your hand from the get-go because of the faster paced nature of the game. You'd rather have cards that just from the beginning are just like, if you discard this, X happens, right? Instead of having to play a card to generate one of those. As odd as that seems, because in other card games, whenever you see a card that just makes a card, that's already like, there's no way that card's gonna be terrible.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
Like we can align on that.
Yeah.
But with Snap, because of the fast pace, it changes. When it comes to the destroy synergy, this card is even worse. because this is something you couldn't really have known, because like Destroy has a lot of things going on turn 3. There's a lot of competition for that slot. And Daken is just not it, because you have to play Daken, and then you have to play the Muramasa Shard, and then you have to destroy it. And the big reason as to why this card doesn't really pop off lies in the payoff. The payoff seems pretty neat. That I wanted to really emphasize, like 5 and 6 is like pretty decent to hit. To have to do all these things to just get this card to 8 power. This card only really starts carrying its weight when you enhance the combo some way, right? And you're able to essentially have it create an extra copy of the shard, or you're able to trigger the on-reveal effect twice. You're able to somehow trigger the shard's effect twice, and then you're able to get this to 16 power. That's some real payoff that would really make it okay. But the problem is getting there is quite tricky, very easy for the opponent to counter. And ultimately this card has, I wouldn't say it's like meme status, like it's not an NPC, like you can make decks with it, but ultimately it just happens to be a worse version of either a discard or a destroy card the vast majority of the time. So I am sorry.
No, you
Not
don't
really.
have to be
I'm a little bit sorry.
You are held accountable by comments. Only comments.
Yeah, no,
I
think I'm legitimately gonna get rid of the part here. But in my defense, this was your first Marvel Snap review. This is my first card rating video, so I'm gonna use that as an excuse.
Yeah, guinea pig.
And have people sympathize with me.
Sure.
So I think the comments will actually be very supportive on this. Are you ready for the next card?
I'm ready for another shot. Hell yeah.
Let's go, baby. Here we have Nova. Nova is a 1 energy, 2 power card that has an ability that says, when this is destroyed, give your cards +2 power. Any questions? Let them loose.
Oh, God. Okay, we just talked about Destroy Synergy. This is 1 mana?
This is only 1 energy.
One energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I confuse it all the time. Don't get me like, don't worry. Like I mix it up a lot.
When it's destroyed. We talked about Destroy Synergy. You just told me there's so much competition round 3 for Destroy Synergy. You just told me that. It shouldn't be too hard to destroy this. So how good is it for 1 mana to get +2 power? So when it says cards, my question is, does this include hand buffs? Does this include your whole deck? Like in Hearthstone, maybe?
No. When it is destroyed, give your card. Yeah, that's a very good question, because it's actually not intuitive within the text. This means this applies a buff to your board. Remember what I told you that every location has a maximum of 4 cards. So mathematically, like in a perfect world, if you were able to buff 11 cards with this card, right? Because this will be destroyed, but then there will be 11 cards left. We'd be looking at 22 points. Right?
Yeah. That sounds really good.
Insane.
That sounds insane.
So, but obviously we're talking about 11 cards. But yeah, this is that's the whole point of the effect. So you can assume that this card is better used like later in the game, stuff like that.
Yeah. You put it down maybe early or later, right? It's only 1. It doesn't matter when this is destroyed. Well, it matters when it's destroyed, because you want as much board as possible. So you want to destroy it like the turn before, I guess, a winner is declared, right? And you talked about cards that, like, when they're revealed, destroy things that cost only 1, so that can be a for or against positive, like you blow up your opponent's Nova. Maybe you want to blow it up early, so you don't want to play this early. So there's some play to it, right? Like you have to really decide when to launch this card, and then when to blow it up or how to use it. And that's interesting. I can see why that's interesting for players. I can see why that's interesting for game design. So it's a cool card. It's the first one. It's the first card I've seen for 1. And that means that I don't know what rates to compare it to, but it is hard to imagine that your deck is loaded with 1 energy plays that can give like 10 or more buff to the board. That sounds crazy. That sounds so crazy to me. So that immediately puts this out of some range of. I don't think it's an NPC. I don't think it's gluten-free. So yeah, it doesn't sound like there's just, you're gonna be like, yeah, we're not gonna be like, oh, nah, there's a 1 mana play that gives 3 power to everything. I'm gonna be like, ah. All right. So the question is, how good is it? And given the nature of the game, the short nature of the game, the locations, you set this up, and then you're playing simultaneously. So you put a thing down, they put a thing down, blah, blah, blah. Reveal in priority order. This reveals, this blows up. Now your power is higher than they expected. And it's only one. I can't get over that. It's only one. One drops that do something like that are so good, right? They're so good. This has to be good. It's like a stats game. This has to be somewhat good. And Destroy Synergy sounds like a form of card advantage of its own. Oh God, is this broken? Am I looking at a Dr. Manhattan? Is this what a Dr. Manhattan in Snap is like? Is this, oh. And am I am not educated enough to make that call.
That's the point of this.
Okay. I do think it's a smartphone or a Manhattan though.
Follow your heart.
That's Dr. Manhattan right there. This card had to be changed. This card was too good.
Boom. Yep. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done, sir. I'm honestly like, okay.
Woo!
I'm gonna give it to you. Maybe you are the one and best of one after all. That was good. Very good logic. Very good,
So
rationalization right there. So let me talk a little bit about this. This is actually an old version of the card. All right. Yes, as you can see, I'm starting strong, with the gluten-free bread and then dropping a Dr. Manhattan on you. Like I was feeling like an asshole, but then you got it right. So you know what? I think this is proper. This is actually considered to be, by many players, one of the most broken cards in Marvel Snap's existence, because it was just absurd, right? Just so you know, 1 energy, 2 power is generally like, it's considered to be like the vanilla stat line for 1 energy. Like,
okay,
a 1 drop that just provides you 2 power for 1 energy will never be deemed good enough. But when you have a 1 drop that provides you with 2 power that gives you an effect on top of that, if it's a relevant enough effect, it's definitely a really solid stat line to go with that. So the reason why this is Dr. Manhattan is because of what you said. Like, it gives +2 power to your entire board. It is ultimately a stat gain, and because it's so cheap, this card was played outside of destroy decks. This card was that good that you did not need to play a dedicated destroy deck. You just need to have a few destroy cards in your deck, and you would justify playing this card, especially when you played stuff like the card that I mentioned earlier, Killmonger, the 3 mana, 3 power card that on reveal destroys all 1 cost cards on both boards. So you could even run cards that weren't necessarily as synergistic with destroy mechanisms, but just a good overall like tech card to proc this. And when this card gave +2 power to everything, it was just absurd. The swings, the point swings this card would lead to out of nowhere. Like, it did not take long for them to nerf it. If you want to know, Nova now is a 1 energy, 1 power card that when destroyed gives your cards +1 power. So you can see the dramatic, you can see the dramatic nerf this card has underwent. And there's been a lot of discussions because there have been several broken cards in the past for Marvel Snap. There's been more than several. But this one is really, like, at the very least, I would consider this one like top 3. Like, top 3 most broken cards of all time for Marvel Snap. So I am legitimately, I'm happy for you that you got this one. Because I think a back-to-back smartphone miss would have felt quite bad. So, you followed your heart, you followed your brain, and you nailed it with this one. So yeah, very, very scary card. And I think you can understand at this point why that was the case.
Hell yeah.
You ready for round 3?
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, picking it up. All right. Okay, this one. Oh boy, here we go. Kang the Conqueror. Kang the Conqueror, I'm gonna read you the text real quick, is a 5 energy, 0 power card with an on-reveal effect that says, look at what your opponent did, then restart the turn. Without Kang. So some clarifications, okay? What this means is that when you play this and this card reveals, you see the entire turn play out, and then the turn, rewinds. Right? There's like this really cool animation, and the entire turn rewinds, and you get that information. But both players are able to do something different. So you're not locking your opponent to that, which is important to note. And something important to note without Kang, if you were to top deck Kang on the same turn you played him, when you restart the turn, because you start without Kang, Kang will no longer be at the top of your deck, so you'll draw your next card instead.
Okay.
Which I think is an important detail as well to mention.
Okay. It's
very unique card
in a way. It cycles kind of.
Yeah. 12 card decks. Keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hear it. What do you think,
dude? I would have been like railing on this card as an NPC a few weeks ago, and then I made a video talking about Yu-Gi-Oh. And I got absolutely hosed for calling a card bad that revealed like all the opponent's hand, and they were saying like the gist of it was, if you know your opponent's hand, you've almost won the game. Like, you know too much, right? And now I am trying to figure out, is that knowledge as powerful in Snap as it is in Yu-Gi-Oh, which I still struggle to comprehend, because I told
that sounds like a predicament. Sucks to be you.
Yeah, dude, I was like, just get good. Obviously, if they know what you're playing, just play around it. What's wrong? Why? Or
important to know that you cannot see your opponent's hand with this.
Okay,
like, it's just it's look at what your opponent did.
Right,
so only what they played. Yeah.
But that's the thing, right? If you're a gamer, if you're a gamer, we don't rope, okay? We just consider things, such as if they played X, they probably don't have Y. And in a 12-card deck, I feel like it shouldn't be very hard to know everything in their deck. I bet you give me a month of playing Snap, and I resolve a card like this, I can tell what's in your hand by what you didn't play. That's what I am guessing, and maybe that's overconfident, but I bet you could do that, because you're a gamer. So
I am.
There's a lot.
I'm not the one, but I am a gamer.
So the information is, this seems like the information is pretty powerful. It's 12 cards. Is like, there's so many giveaways, right? Oh, I didn't ask about. I assume one per deck. I assume this is singleton.
Yeah. In Marvel Snap, you can only have one copy of each card.
Thank God. All right. Yeah. Let's try that for a format. Marvel Snap, but you can have 3 of a card in your deck. Anyway,
that sounds interesting.
Anyway, so that's part of it, right? Is this gets you a card deeper? So if you're a combo deck, if you have a specific synergy that's better than everything else in the game, this is just another roll at it at 5, which I'm guessing 5 energy. You said there were ways to ramp, but so this is still a pretty expensive card, but it does get you a card deeper, and now both players get to replay with info, so you get to play the mind games. So this is a gamer card. If you're smarter than the average opponent, or you're just better at like focusing, if you're like on PC and they're on the toilet, right? This card will favor you probably. So I think it's, God, I would have said it was bad before Yu-Gi-Oh, but it has me thinking different. So now it looks way more interesting. Why wouldn't a deck play this? That's a good question. Why wouldn't a deck want to be a card deeper and roll back a turn with info?
What do you mean by a card deeper?
Because it draws a card afterwards, right? You said?
Well, no, what I was saying is, like, if you draw this on the turn that you play it, if this card, like, that's what I meant. If you have this in your hand prior and you play it, you do lose card advantage.
Oh, it's the opposite. Okay. I misunderstood. That's okay.
No, it's I try to clarify it, but that's something that needs to be explained.
Yeah. Look! My head just wants to draw cards. My mind just goes crazy. All right.
I like drawing cards too.
Yeah, so it is a card negative. Okay, that definitely changes things. How bad is that in Marvel Snap? 12 cards. 12 cards. Man, that seems pretty bad. That seems pretty bad. Not gonna lie, that seems really bad. Can you leverage that information? Yes, you can. Is it worth going down a card? People tell me all the time, like, I tell them you don't want to run duress in a creature heavy meta. You know what I mean? From Magic, because you duress them and you miss and you're down a card. And every time they're like, the information. I'm like, no. If you're a good gamer, you get the information from how they play. You don't need the information, especially when it's all creatures. So, is this Yu-Gi-Oh? Or is this Magic? I am... my God. I hate going down cards. I hate it so much. It's now that I know that, it's like warped my whole perception. You know what? You're an NPC. This card's terrible. Terrible.
Good job. Good job.
You nailed it. You nailed. Oh,
I
thought I had you.
Oh my God, I was
I
so
I had
scared.
you. I was like, oh, he's gonna Dr. Manhattan this shit.
Oh, I was so scared on this one. Okay.
Wow. Okay. So that is very. The fact that when you knew that you dropped down in card advantage. This is a very, very interesting guy. I am a little bit of a dick. Honestly, like at this point, you can tell that I'm just a major asshole, like preparing these cards, because this is gonna go down in history as perhaps, in my opinion, the most overrated card upon release. People thought something that I didn't tell you that maybe could have worked. Oh, and I honestly, like, if I told you this, your answer could have probably been different, but that's on me. Something that happens with Kang is you can also snap and then play Kang and then the snap undoes itself.
Oh yeah, let's do that now, because I know that you snap at people when you think you're gonna win, but how would you better, like,
Yeah, we didn't actually
flush
go with
that
the
out?
snap, did we?
Not really, no.
Yeah, no, okay. So basically, the game. So in Marvel Snap, and the reason why in Marvel Snap, like, win rate isn't as important. Like, it's more about cube rate, right? You climb the ladder by gathering cubes. You try to take cubes away from your opponent. So when you play somebody, at first there's one cube on the line. If you do not retreat before the game is over, then at the very end of the game, the cube count doubles. So you go from 1 to 2. Each player can snap a total of once per game. If you snap, the moment you snap, after that turn resolves, so after the turn you snap resolves, the cube count will double. So the amount of cubes on the line for both players.
Okay.
So you go from 1 to 2. If both players snap, you go from 2 to 4, and then if the game ends, if the last turn resolves, that 4 turns into 8.
Okay.
So you can lose 1 cube by just retreating, before the first snap or as the first snap happens. Or you can lose a total of 8 cubes if you go all in and you really think you're gonna win.
So it's doubling. It's kind of like doubling down.
Yeah, that's why Marvel Snap is more similar to poker.
Yeah.
In compared to like other card games that are more similar to I wouldn't know what the comparison is, but definitely not poker, like more like win rate centered, right? So Kang was extremely hyped, and I believe the most overrated card ever before release. And it was actually overrated even after release for quite some time. Like, people were playing this card easily for like a month at least, thinking it was good when it was bad. Like, it's like the craziest thing ever, because of the fact that you could just snap and then play Kang.
Oh, because the opponent. Okay, let me take a
Doesn't
shot.
know.
Yeah, the opponent might leave.
Exactly.
So it's a chance
The
to
opponent
just
could
win
leave.
the game.
You could bluff. You could bluff with Kang, but that turned out to not really, because if the same logic that you were using applies to the snap as well, you can bluff a snap, but if you're in a bad position and you're facing a knowledgeable player, that player is not going to be shaken up by you snapping. It's just like, okay, they're just an idiot, because if you're able to read the state of the game properly, like, obviously unexpected things happen all the time in Marvel Snap. It is an inherently very chaotic card game, but a lot of that chaos comes from the locations, which are revealed in the first 3 turns of the game. So later down the line, the crazy unexpected stuff still happens, but less so. And especially if you're a very knowledgeable player that really knows what the decks in the meta are and what to expect from each matchup, then a random like snap out of nowhere that has like no foundation, it shouldn't really affect you as much, right? And people overrated this. And it turned out that Kang ultimately, like the fact that it most often than not lost you card advantage and did nothing. And the biggest problem with Kang is that you get to look at what your opponent does, but then you restart the turn. To compare this card, there's a 2-drop, a 2 energy, 2 power card that's called Daredevil. I mean, I'm pretty sure you know the character.
Yeah.
That says that on turn 5, you get to see your opponent's play before yours. So they lock in their play, and then you make yours. That turned out, and I said this from the beginning, by the way, like I'm gonna toot my horn here a little bit because I said Kang was overwhelming since they won, and people got really mad at me. But I'm just like, this is a worse Daredevil because Daredevil locks you into the play. Right? Like Daredevil does not allow your opponent to redo things. Kang leads to mind games. And a lot of times in Marvel Snap, when you set up these mind games, you turn the situation into 50-50 scenarios.
It's mind games, but you're the one down a card.
Exactly. You're mind games and you're down 1 a card, and you got a little bit of information out of them, like maybe 1 or 2 cards or several cards out of them on turn 5 or turn 6. You know, you do get to see what their last play is. Like that information is not inherently useless, but most often than not, also the fact that you have 12 card decks, and that means a lot of times like you find you have a hard time finding like specific slots for specific cards, and having a card that just like goes -1 for you and is taking up a slot out of those 12 cards is actually a big detriment. And this guy's an NPC. This guy like does not see, is one of the least played cards in Marvel Snap as of now. And unless he gets reworked, that's going to remain the case. I've tried to make him good. I've tried to go against the curve, and I've tried to be like, you know what, this guy's actually secretly good. Nah, it's just copium.
Yeah. I have 2 questions have occurred to me out of our Kang discussion. Number 1, is cube rate is cubes like the ranking? Is it how you rank up? Is it ladder currency?
You collect cubes, but it's not like you still go up a ladder like a normal ladder. You know, like that has like different ranks, but the cubes themselves are what earn you. So basically, like there are 100 ranks until infinite. Once you reach 100, you reach infinite, right? And every 10 ranks, there's like an upgrade, right? Like you go from iron to bronze to all that stuff, right? Gold, etc. And so let's say for example, rank 80 is called Omega rank, right?
Nice. From
80 to 90. So every like 80 to 81, 81 to 82, every one of these like individual ranks, it's like 7 cubes.
Okay.
When you collect 7 cubes, you go to the next one. You understand?
Yeah.
So the more cubes you earn in a game, the faster you will climb.
Yeah, it is like ranking currency.
And if you lose cubes, you will derank as well.
Okay.
Naturally.
Okay.
And the more cubes you lose, the more brutal the the deranking is.
Check.
So that's essentially how it goes.
Okay. Are there any locations that you're going to show me in the video?
Well, no, we're not gonna do location. We're just doing cards today.
Okay, I don't know anything about locations. I was wondering.
Yeah, locations have like different effects. Some are not as impactful. Some are. Some have like area of effects of just like everything here has like -3 power, for example. So the more cards you put onto it, the worse. Some locations you can't play into. Some locations are restricted to what you can play into them. Some locations add stuff to your hand. Some locations discard stuff from your hand. There's so many like different effects, and that's really what makes Marvel Snap a compelling game, is the location system. Because it allows you to play a 12-card deck, but no one game is ever going to be the same.
Okay.
And that stems from the location system.
Are they done at random?
They are random, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You ready for the next one?
I am.
Okay, next one we got is the baby shark.
The baby shark? What?
The baby shark.
The
His
hell
name
is this?
Jeff. I thought the same thing when they revealed it. Everybody was like, wow, that is so adorable. But I was honestly like a little bit put off by it. But the community loves this. I'm going to try to like not really gas this guy too much.
Oh my God.
He's a beloved character.
Okay.
Within Marvel.
Okay.
This is a 2 energy, 3 power card that says you can move this once. Nothing can stop you from moving or playing this to any location. This effect, we're just talking about locations. This effect applies to locations. All right, so for example, if there's a location that is like, oh, nothing can go in here, you know, or nothing can be played here, you can play Jeff into it. You know, like there's nothing that can stop you from playing this 2-drop anywhere you want, and you can move it once. So if you played in a location on the right, at any point in the match, you can potentially move it to the center or to the left. You know, so that's...
Can Jeff join a full location?
No.
Okay.
No, that does stop it. Like if there are 4 cards in that location, you cannot add Jeff into it.
Nothing can stop you.
I know, yeah. That's there.
Nice. The rules of the game cannot stop me.
CGV here just
that's the way it should be.
Pointing out the flaws within the card text. Yeah.
That's the way it should be, man. Okay, Jeff.
I'm on your side on this.
Thank you. I would have said this card was an NPC. And the only thing that is like stopping me now is you're talking about moving it to locations where it shouldn't be able to move. And I want to talk, first of all, that kind of depends on some of the location stuff that I don't know on how good that is. But second of all, that makes no fucking sense. None. Like, this is a shark. A shark needs to be near water.
Thank
how
you.
Does a snark,
Thank you. Like, what even is this character?
Magic the Gathering.
Do you know? I mean, do you know Marvel?
I don't know
I don't
this
know who the
character.
fuck this guy
in
is.
Marvel.
Like, is he just a shark that's just like really happy and eating like junk food?
Yeah.
Which is probably terrible for his digestive system because he's just not like. Says when do sharks like digest lactose? You know, like that's just not.
They're carnivores. They're
Exactly. Like it
predators.
makes no sense. It's eating a pizza. Like there's so
It's got
many
fast
like
food in front of it.
so much wheat. Yeah,
It's the destruction of our food chain. It's a joke. And
sometimes there's a thing is too much creativity. I do not know. Like he's probably from like another dimension. I mean, that's what Marvel does, right? Like
Sure.
they're just like, oh, they're all just a different dimension.
Yeah.
You know, different
where
rules.
sharks became people. Yeah, that's what it is. And if you don't like it, you don't like the lore, and then you're not a real fan. So there.
What does it have his fins for? Like, is it actually swimming? Is he swimming through time and space? Like, what is happening? I do not understand.
What did evolution do to this
in
creature?
In the game, it just like has this like swimming animation, you know, like when it pops in and stuff, but it makes no sense. Like I didn't even bother researching this character, to be honest. I was just like, okay, whatever.
It's from a water planet or something, and his name is just Jeff. It can't even have a shark, a sharky name. Okay, like what? Yeah, I'm fully opposed.
We're gonna get ripped apart. We're gonna get ripped apart. I'm just letting you know, we're gonna get absolutely destroyed in the comments.
Magic the Gathering
because
did
people
it right.
somehow love this character.
Magic the Gathering had Sea Serpent. You know what Sea Serpent did? This was in the very first Magic set. It couldn't attack if the defending player didn't control an island. Why? Because it would have to swim somewhere to attack something. How is this thing just going anywhere?
Yeah, no, that's a good. Yeah, like I have nothing. Like you're preaching to the choir here.
Okay, cool.
I'm a Jeff hater, so yeah.
God, but I'm not supposed to analyze whether or not it makes any damn sense. I'm supposed to figure out if this is a good card. And so I am guessing, just based on things that you said, that 2 for 3, and you don't have to answer this. I'm going off what you already said. Okay. I'm guessing that 2 for 3 is meh. I'm guessing it's nothing to get super excited about. So to me, it comes down to whether or not this moving wherever it wants to once a turn is actually a really valuable ability. And that is really hard to gauge. That is really hard to gauge. Like on its own, like maybe you're near the end of the game or you're about to snap and you're going to overload a location that you need to overload, and this moving makes a big difference. And also maybe what you said, moving into locations where you wouldn't normally be able to go to, maybe that is a very important factor in the game. If I am evaluating this unsure if those things exist, then I'm looking at this as like, aren't you just better most of the time playing better stats and using your brain to place them better? Like, wouldn't better players just get more out of their 2-drop than this? And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe what happens down the line and how a game plays out is different. But I'm calling this, man, I'm gonna call this gluten-free bread. That's what I see. I bet that there is some niche deck that people play this in, especially when you say it's so beloved. Like, it's probably not an absolute joke of a card. There's probably a deck that people are trying so hard to get to work, you know? They just want it to be good, but good players know. Like, the good players absolutely take them to the cleaners for playing such a 2-drop, as they should. So, gluten-free bread right there.
I'm gonna go ahead and exacerbate your negative feelings towards this card by saying that you are incorrect. It is a smartphone.
What?
This is a smartphone, and you had some really solid logic going on there, but where you said that I couldn't say anything, where you said, you know, like, okay, for 2 energy, 3 power for 2 energy is like, it's like the minimum, right? Like, you are right that it's nothing crazy, but it just happens to be enough to make an impact in that location. Like, it's a stat that makes the 2-drop like not nothing. Is the best way to say it. Like, it is a stat line that is relevant. And the big thing about this card, not so much of its ability to move, I would say, though that's obviously like a very, very important element to it, but it's also just the fact that you can play this on a location as well, any location. There's a lot of locations that don't allow you to play into them. Jeff became this extremely reliable, very easily proactive 2-drop play that you didn't even have to overthink where to place it. And then, because Marvel Snap is a location of winning 2 out of 3 locations, being able to move your cards around is actually a pretty big deal. We had an example of a card like this in Nightcrawler at one energy. So for 1 energy, 2 power, and it had the ability to move once. Didn't have the rest of the text, but it could be essentially move like Jeff. But the big difference is Nightcrawler being a 1-drop made it vulnerable to Killmonger, which is the 3-drop that kills all 1 costs, which has become multiple times a very, very meta-defining card, right? And Jeff was not vulnerable to such an easy tech board wipe against it. And it became this extremely reliable tool that just allowed you to reach locations that you could otherwise not reach. And back when Professor X was different, because now Professor X has been nerfed, Professor X would lock down a location and not allow anything to go into it, and Jeff could actually go into it anyways. So that was also a pretty big factor. But more than anything, the reason why Jeff is just so good, he's not broken, but he's just reliable. It's just on turn 2, you have Jeff in your hand, and you always feel good because you can just play him wherever, and then you can move him where you actually truly need him, and your opponent has to account for that as well when they're distributing their own points across the locations too. Having that reach and having it onto a body and having that ability to just go wherever you want regardless of the circumstances, unless that location is full, turned out to be a very, very powerful trait for a 2-drop to have. And Jeff not only is like meta defining, he's one of the best 2-drops ever made for Marvel Snap, actually. One of the most popular ones as well. I've seen this shark a million times, and I still don't understand what he is, why he is the way that he is. Like, I'm a big boomer with this card, and we're both gonna get completely trampled over because despite the fact that this guy's common, or he's very popular within the ladder, he's also popular within people's hearts for some weird ass freaking reason. And
because they grew up watching Baby Shark 500 times on YouTube. That's why.
Yeah, another generation.
Children.
Man. Another generation.
Children.
Yeah, these damn kids. How do we reach these kids, man? I don't know how. But yeah, it's definitely it is a smartphone. Jeff is a smartphone. I thought this was actually one of the easier ones. So,
oh god,
just throw that there to put you down just a little bit, get some humility in you.
Good luck. Good luck with that. The internet's been trying for years. They haven't made it yet.
True. It's not that easy to bring down the one of best of one. All right.
I am mad that Nightcrawler is like a worse Jeff. That kind of tears my heart a little bit. I love Nightcrawler.
I know. I think Nightcrawler is one of the coolest X-Men, and the fact that he's just the worst version of like a sentient fast food eating shark, like it's just it's just awful. Honestly, it's just awful. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I think when 100 years pass, like, we're gonna be on the right side of history in this. Honestly.
Yes.
Just that's what I go by. Let's go for the next one. Are you ready? Next one.
I need to redeem myself.
Yeah. Let's see if you can with the one and only Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock has a text that says it's a 5 energy, 5 power card that says after each turn, draw a card if you're winning here.
After each turn, draw a card if you're winning here. So here being the location that Adam
Exactly.
Okay. After each turn, draw a card if you're winning here. So it's very interesting because now I am trying to think of how games play out in my head. If a game lasts 6 turns, 5 energy is a lot. 5 power is probably fine, but turn 5, if you're playing this on 5 and not ramping, is really close to like winning time. You know what I mean? So if you play this and there's only like 1 turn left in the game and you play it on a position that you're sure you're going to be winning, that you are very confident you're going to be winning, then what about the other 2 positions? And then even if you do just kind of overload onto something where you're winning, how important is 1 card for the final turn? 12 card deck, probably very important, but oof. It's conditional card draw, and it does kind of pencil you into using a lot of mana to put what I'm guessing is a typical rate in a spot that you're sure you're winning. Because if you're not winning, it's a disaster. Probably. There's no way you're going to tell me that 5 energy for a 5 vanilla is good in a game that is good. That's just too boring. Oof. So how rare is card advantage? Are there probably things that do this better? It sure feels like there should be. It really feels like there should be. It feels like... Does that make this gluten? I don't think so. Gosh, I hope I'm not wrong, because this doesn't seem that good to me. There's not that many turns left at the point you play this. You need a way to like cheat this out and then for your opponent not to be able to match it. It's conditional card draw on stats that don't seem busted. I'm sure that you're going to show me at some point things that for 5 have 6 or 7 like power. You mentioned some things already that make me think this is mediocre. So, conditional card draw. I hate conditional card draw. I love card draw. I hate conditional card draw. You're an NPC, Adam.
Thank God.
Adam
Thank
NPC.
God. Thank God. If you, oh my God. I'm sorry. Like, this is the one that you cannot fail.
Okay. You were gonna turn off the video. My career was going to be over. Yeah. I get this wrong. I lose the whole thing. I lose the video
This
no matter
man
what.
like literally nailed Kang. Do not fail me on Adam Warlock, please.
Yeah, this is an NPC, and this card has a very peculiar and, in my opinion, hilarious history to it, because this card, and I'm gonna need you to follow me on this, because the logic is gonna crumble a bit as I say that. Like, this card was a 2 energy, 0 power card initially. Now, in your mind, does that seem better or worse?
What? No, say that again. How much energy?
This card was a 2 energy, 0 power
power
card first.
0 power.
In your mind, does this feel better or worse?
Oh, so I mean, the ability to double spell and play more things seems better to me. It's a lower commitment to possibly get the effect.
It's definitely.
So,
it wasn't like
seems-
It wasn't like broken or anything by any means.
But this
It was
seems
still
worse.
very underplayed. But it was definitely like, you can easily argue that it's definitely better being able to develop a conditional card draw like this, as you said, for less mana. Also, it being 2 energy and 0 power gave it some quirky synergies with cards like Mr. Negative, which flip over the energy and power costs and stuff like that. Also, cards that allow you to play, there's some cards that can reduce the cost of that even. Like, there were more synergies with it at that state. And ultimately, you were just able to play it, way earlier on in the game and capitalize on the conditional card draw if you can enable it earlier, right? This card kind of like defeats the purpose when you think about the fact that unless you, like you said, ramp into this, you are effectively, best case scenario, playing 5 power for 5 energy, which by the way, I will say now, really bad. Generally speaking, like for, you know, a stat that you're happy with, for 5 energy, obviously depends on the effect and stuff, but generally like 9 power is the vanilla for 5. So this card is very, very under. There are cards that are, you know, weak. You know, there's even like a card that's like 5 energy, 4 power that's actually really good. But of course, it needs a much more impactful effect than this. This card will fundamentally like just, at its best, just draw you a card. In a game, well, yeah, card draw is really powerful. It's something that they're clearly very scary to make good. Because the moment you make a good, reliable card draw, then, you know, your deck becomes super consistent, right? Because we're talking about 12 card decks. So, but this is a clear example of the fact that they're just way too terrified. And in my opinion, they should just redesign this card altogether. Because this card has never really been good. And the moment they made it a 5-drop, like the funny thing is this card went from a 2-drop to a 5-drop. And the reasoning behind the developer, because they always give their reasoning for each change, is like, you know, when you add more power to a card, it becomes better. So this became a meme. Like this change, yeah. This was an all full blown out meme. Reddit, Twitch, X, Twitter, whatever I call it, like everywhere. People were just completely like they just would not let this go. You know, like I feel bad for the dev, you know, because we all have our slip ups, you know. But man, they committed. They got a hold of the chokehold and they just never stopped squeezing, man. Like it was just incessant. I loved every minute of it, by the way, because I do like a little bit of chaos, you know, in the midst of my routine. I like, you know, when people just, and this was a fun era, you know, because it was just
Shake
such
it up, baby.
Yeah, it was just so ridiculous. Like they made the cars worse. And they use the logic of like, well, now it has more power. Yeah, but it costs 5 energy. You know, like it's not just one stat we're talking about here. And the effect as well. Like you want this effect to happen as early as possible. So putting it onto a 5-drop doesn't really make any sense, right? This is definitely one of the weakest points the dev teams have ever had when it comes to like buffing or nerfing a card. And I could not help myself from including it into this list because it's definitely, you know, it's one of the more controversial cards within Marvel Snap's history. And I thought it was gonna be a really fun one. I'm really happy that you were able to nail it though, because I was kind of like on the edge of my seat there. I couldn't say anything, but I was just, you know, you'll see. Like I was just like,
look what you've done. You've continued the meme. Even somebody who knows nothing about Marvel Snap knows. Like
exactly.
The meme got worse.
We perpetuated this. Like we revived the meme, and it feels glorious. So. Let's move on because I honestly want to stop talking about Adam Warlock. You know, there's only so much I can handle with this card. Like this card is just ridiculous. Let's go on to card number 6. We're on our way towards the end. We got 2 more to go. Let's see. You're doing pretty good. Like right now, so far, you got 3 correct and 2 incorrect. But honestly, like on even on the 2 ones that you've gotten incorrect, like you selected a tier that was like right next to it, right? So you weren't really super far off. Let's see.
I need 1 more to lock in.
Yeah.
You know, plus 500.
Yeah. Let's see if you got it. Meet Leader. Leader is a 6 energy, 4 power card that has an on reveal effect that says copy all cards your opponent played this turn, but on your side.
What the fuck is this? What? Copy all cards. Did they go to the location that your opponent played them on?
Go on. What?
Did they copy the location that the opponent played them on?
No. Yeah. So it doesn't copy. I thought you were saying it copied the location. No, it copies the card on the location your opponent played it in. Yes.
Isn't that insane? Okay, so for 6 energy, you get 4 power at a location, and then you get all the power your opponent played. So if that's your only play, in theory, you're ahead 4 power. What happens if you're overloading a location? Just nothing?
Nothing.
Okay.
Like if you were to play Leader, for example, but your opponent played like 2 cards in one location, but you have 3 cards in that location already, then the first card that they played would be copied, but the second one wouldn't be.
Okay, you can play towards this though. You can just kind of space it out and seem like you're a little bit behind. Just seem a little bit behind. And then you play this, and oh man, how good are the opponents? Do they know a leader deck when they see one? Because maybe they just play nothing that turn. Just still get wrecked. Okay, let's think about that though. If they expect leader, can they play around leader? No, if they just hold back, you're still getting ahead. That's not good for them. If you don't have it, it's bad for them, and if they played around it. If you do have it and they just play like normal, that seems really bad for them. I think that makes this busted. Are you busted? Oh my goodness. Okay, copy all cards your opponent played. Are there things that they would play that would be bad for you or that you wouldn't want? No, that doesn't seem like the point of the game. I'm not seeing a lot of things that have like downsides. It's just like stats are the currency. This steals their stats, and you get 4 more because of this thing's own power. Okay, let's think about it. What deck wouldn't play this? I can't answer that. I don't see it. Oh my gosh. So is this thing just busted? I think this is broken. I'm going there. This is Dr. Manhattan in a, giant green head. This is broken.
This card made me quit the game.
Yeah?
This card is, for me, some people claim that Nova was worse. I think Leader has been one of probably the worst thing to happen to Marvel Snap in its entirety. Very few other cards really reach this point. Everything that you said is true. And I felt like I was yelling to a wall for quite some time because for there was a lot of copium around this card being fine. There were people defending it.
What?
But the fundamental problem with Leader is that, as you said, the game revolves around one stat, and here you have a card that gives you 4 power and copies everything you do. So basically, what did Leader decks look like? Well, they were boring as hell because they were decks that in tempo, right? So they played strong, reliable, independent plays that would allow them to generate a good amount of points. And they would play a game in which they would try to, sacrifice that lack of build up and instead get momentum to always stay ahead of the opponent. Because if by turn, a lot of decks resort to turn 6 to just really pop off. At one point you said, what happens if you be behind? No, the scary thing of this card is when you have a deck that is very efficient at staying ahead until the last turn of the game, then you drop Leader, and whatever they do, you copy it, and you stay ahead. And you can use the 4 points to get ahead in a location that you're not, right? So this motherfucker is the worst, was the worst. To say, I hated him, CGB. I hated him with every cell of my body. Like, I would go out. After I was done streaming, I would go walk into the street and I would see green people and big heads everywhere. It was awful. It was legitimately awful. I'm getting heated just talking about him. Yeah, so this card got nerfed. Thank you. This card got nerfed, thankfully. It took them a long time to do so though. And I still remember. I still remember the days with this, and it was just.
I'm getting mad for you.
The absolute worst. This card, especially the people who defended the card. Oh, Leader is fine. Shut the fuck up, Timmy. Like, I swear to God. I saw like legit good players saying that, oh, maybe just take a couple of points off of them. Oh my God, just delete this guy already.
I don't see how they could say that. Like, that makes no sense.
He's gone through several like weird iterations, but ultimately with Leader, now he stands at like 3 power, and he copies the strongest card you played. And because of how the game has evolved, it's reached a point where he's actually not meta relevant at all. Like, he's actually fallen big time. Leader has fallen big time from grace. He's not unplayable, but he's definitely not what he used to be. Before, it was just like, and you asked a very good question at a point. It's like, in what decks do you not play this in? And the answer really is none. Like, Destroy decks played Leader, Good Stuff mid-range played Leader. Pretty much everything that wasn't swarming your own board played Leader, because that was the one weakness of the card, was if you were playing a deck that was really trying to spread out, right, and develop a bunch of different cards, because there's also cards that generate tokens and stuff, right, that can fill the board, and you just don't have enough space, then Leader all of a sudden is just not as reliable. Barring decks like that, this guy fit everywhere. Like, legitimately fit everywhere. People who were not running him were just on copium. He was super broken. And thank God he no longer exists like this. And I'm really happy that you, I was actually rooting for you on this one because, there was a little bit of spite within me still. And I kind of made use of this to just bring it out again.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm happy to see it. Good job. You got, okay, so we're 4-2. Now, are we going to end 5-2 like a boss or 4-3 like a average?
Contestant. Yeah.
No pressure. No pressure. But here is the very last card. His name is Cannonball. Cannonball is a 5 energy, 8 power card that has an on reveal effect that says move the highest power enemy card here away. If you cannot, destroy it with a rock. And I'm gonna explain what that means. So if Cannonball plays and there's no space for you to move the card that you're gonna move onto another location because both other locations are fully locked up, right? They both have 4 cards. Then Cannonball will destroy the strongest card and will replace it with a rock. Like it says destroy it with a rock, it doesn't make sense. Like you destroy the card and then you spawn a rock in its place. And the rock is quite simply a 1 energy, 0 power card, right? So just nothing. But in order to do that, you need to have both the 2 other locations completely filled up. All right, go.
Okay, so going off of Jeff, there are other ways and other circumstances where a location can't be entered, right? Other ways to lock it down.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And in that case, man, I'm not sure how likely this is. You just mentioned token decks, so maybe go wide decks do create this problem, right? So like putting a rock on a location is also just like, and like, am I crazy? That sounds like you might just win the location. The fact that they have to use a spot for 0 power seems really good to me. That seems really good. I like that.
It's definitely a payoff. It's definitely a payoff if there's like nothing to. But it is important to know that a lot of times, it doesn't really matter if you leave a rock behind or not. It's more important that you got rid of that body, right?
Yeah. Does move it away mean they choose?
No, it's random.
It's random.
It's random.
It's random. Ooh, we like. Okay. Hearthstone brain, engage.
It's Bad Road, baby.
Dude, in Magic, like we fear RNG. In Hearthstone, like you just learn there's so much of it. It can be really good. Yeah. Ah, man.
That chaos,
so 5 for 8 doesn't sound bad. Interacting with the opponent's side of the location sounds good. This card sounds good, man. I want to love this card. I'm seeing like a lot of upside and I'm trying to figure out if I'm in Disneyland. So you put this on a location, you move the highest power enemy away. It goes to a random location, which, is, yeah. It could be really good for you when that happens, right? It could leave you winning 2 locations, which is the point of the game. And obviously,
but it could also send it to like a location that's sometimes
that you were winning. Yeah, say you were winning that location. Yeah, it's dangerous. Like there's a risk to it, but like, I still think that's probably very leverageable. And the fact that you can destroy it and hit with a rock does seem like against certain decks this is a banger against the right kind of setups, but it sure does feel like you put yourself in a great position to win a location. You're adding 8 power and moving away their highest power, which has to like if you're just in like I guess what you call a mid-range fight. If I play big dude, you play big dude, like that's got to be pretty good. This has to be pretty good, right? I think it does. Oh man, this is utterly broken. I don't think it's gluten-free bread. I don't think it's an NPC, but is it utterly broken? If it hasn't been nerfed or banned, it needs to be. Was this nerfed or banned? I don't know. This feels, because I was kind of waiting for my control-y sense to have some cards to latch onto that felt like a good way to interact with the opponent. This feels, I might get roasted for this later. This feels closer to a healthy way to interact with your opponent in the game. Meta defining, like, do you play around it? Smartphone is a meta defining card that's good. Meta defining means maybe you try to not play single high power enemies to win a spot, but that seems like that would be a feature of so many decks. Gosh, this feels, the word staple is in the smartphone description. That feels stapley to me. I'm gonna go with a smartphone. I think you call Cannonball on your smartphone. I think the next Samsung product could be called a Cannonball. This is a smartphone as I've seen. This is a smartphone.
Good job.
Is it?
Good
Yeah,
job.
it is.
Good
It
job.
is.
You nailed it.
Okay,
You nailed
sweet.
it. You nailed it. Let me actually. Very good analysis. Okay, you definitely, you had a rough start at the beginning, but you picked it up, sir. I gotta give you the props. You have some really good logical thinking here, and you reached some good conclusions. As Cannonball is indeed a smartphone, it is actually a card that it's one of my personal favorite cards in the game. I have a little bit of an emotional attachment to it as well because this card was actually very underrated upon release. People didn't really think that Cannonball was going to be as impactful, but from the get-go, I was saying, like, this card, you know where this card wants to be? In a deck that is capable of clogging your opponent. Because there are decks that have the ability in Marvel Snap, like there are cards that can be used to essentially take away slots from an opponent's location. For example, Green Goblin. You're familiar with the Green Goblin character from Spider-Man, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, you play them and he's like, and he's a Kakensei, you know, he's ah, and he laughs and he goes over to the other side. He's like he's a 3-drop -3 that takes up a slot, right?
Oh, okay.
And then there's a card
That's
called
interesting.
Debris that creates rocks. We mentioned rocks earlier, like she spawns rocks on both sides of the board on the other 2 locations. So there are mechanisms to. So Cannonball really shines in decks that are essentially, because it is a random effect, but you can control that. If you have a deck dedicated to filling up one location from the opponent so they cannot play any other cards there, and then what do? You win the other location with Cannonball. You play Cannonball, and Cannonball will move whatever it moves to the 3rd location that you don't care about. And you will be able to win that one. That's the game plan for Cannonball clog decks. It has become a meta-defining card because it is a staple for these decks. Professor X is a card that was ultimately nerfed big time because it was pretty much fundamentally broken with Cannonball, because Professor X would lock down a location. He was like a very underpowered, he was like a 5 energy 1 power card, but when you played him into a location, nothing could leave or enter it. And it essentially like froze the location, right? And then you know, you could only play stuff into the other 2. So that would also be really good with Cannonball, because Cannonball would not be able to move stuff into that location. So any sort of deck that's able to shut down the RNG and essentially lock down one location one way or another is going to love Cannonball. As you said, 8 power for 5 energy. Pretty damn solid. You know, it's not the craziest. Like, you can definitely get more points out of other cards, but considering what it's doing, a lot of times we're not talking about 8 points. Like, if you play this on a location and they have like let's say they have like a Magneto there, you know, we're going for like extreme case, right? Like they have a 12 power, 6 energy card there, right? And you drop the Cannonball and you hit it. We're talking about a 20-point swing in that location, because you're getting rid of the 12 points and you're adding 8 points on your side. So a massive, like very difficult play to win. Like Cannonball excels at winning specific locations. Your job is to be able to secure the other, right? And those are the kind of decks in which this card really excels. So I love playing Cannonball. Clog decks are amongst my favorite because they're a bit of control players kind of like style, right? You're just limiting where your opponent can place their cards. And that's a really cool archetype within Marvel Snap that a lot of people really hate, obviously, because, you know, people always hate control strategies and decks that don't allow you to do things. So, you know, there's probably a lot of people watching that absolutely hate the hell out of this guy, but I love him. And yeah, he's a great card, meta-defining, and definitely one hell of a smartphone. I'd say even an iPhone, honestly. Like, he's up there. I don't have an iPhone, by the way, but yeah, just saying. Yeah, and it's a cool card, and I think it's definitely a card that you would enjoy. You know?
I think so, yes, absolutely. Let them know here at the end of the video when they've already hopefully subscribed or checked something out. Yeah, I'm a control
all that
mage.
stuff.
I want to lock you out of stuff. That sounds awesome. I was wondering how control could work in such a game. And
oh yeah, but
now,
it is a thing. It is definitely a thing. And we have a really solid run, man. 5-2, like very, very well done. And honestly, like going back, like, yeah, Daken was definitely a shitty move on my part.
No. We gotta start somewhere. Every journey begins with a step.
I kind of like it though. Like it just it made it more dramatic because you were. No, it seemed like we set things up for like an ultimate fail, but you picked yourself back up. Got that you got that darn Manhattan call on the second round on the Nova, which was really honestly very impressive considering your that was literally the first one drop you ever saw. So some really, really good calls. That Kang almost went in the completely opposite direction, but I did have to provide you with enough information.
Thank you.
And I'm just happy that the leader, like you just saw that and you were immediately like, what the fuck? I was like trying to like not start, like I was really holding it in. Like you have no idea. In case you guys are wondering, like we don't see each other's through the webcams right now. That's why I was making all sorts of expressions. But I was really, I have to mute myself. Like when you were like just like freaking out about leader, I just could not. I could not. But excellent showing, guys. Cover Go Blue may in fact end up being the best of one, or the one in best of one. I don't even know, man.
Yeah, it's great.
That
all
still sounds
variations.
super pretentious, but it may actually
absolutely
be true. I was very impressed. Good, logical thinking, not rushing into conclusions, just kind of like thinking things through, and very, very good rationalization. And as a Spaniard, I have trouble pronouncing that word. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming, and doing this first rating card video with me. Hopefully you like my tier system. I think it was pretty. It's nice because it makes a clear distinction between the cards, right? Like and I really wanted to make it that way, like to make it so like, okay, these cards fall into either one or another category and make them very different, so that it can be. You can make a difference between them.
It's also like it sets it up to really get it right or wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's very clear.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of these videos and it's just like people just talking about, I think this card is good as I've been, but it's like, where are the stakes? Where's the intensity? Like we need to like actually. It's like I turned it more into like a game show, and you did quite well. Like you set the mark quite up for future. Yeah. And also like for me, because I will also be guessing cards, and now I'm actually really scared because I could see myself going 0-7 easily, and you're gonna look way too smart, which is I don't think your ego needs any more of that. If I say this as an outsider, as an observation, like I don't know, but.
So
Thank
true.
you.
So true.
Thank you,
all right,
CGP.
Everybody who comes next on the show, bring it on.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right, and hopefully I can have you again, because I do think you've learned quite a bit about Marvel Snap today, but I think I can still surprise you a bit with some other cards. So if you're up for it for a round 2 in the future, let me know in the comment section below if you'd like to see that as well. I'm all for it. The door is open. So really love having you here. Thank you for stopping by. Check Covered Go Blue. He posts Magic the Gathering videos on a daily basis. Focuses a lot on Standard, but also does content on Commander and all sorts of other things. As we do know, Magic is actually a bunch of games within one game. So CGB here, and he does a lot of best of one, in case we haven't mentioned that already. So his link will be in the description down below. Thank you for sticking around. Have any last words? Putting you on the spot.
Bring it.
Okay, there we go. He eats his ego. That is his most like important factor. What defines you? No, but seriously, great guy. Like I've known you for quite some time. I actually was an MTG YouTuber before you were, and look at you go now. Like you've come a long way. And it's great to see your success. You definitely deserve it, and I really appreciate you being around here, man.
Thanks, dude. You were a big inspiration to me. Like you said, you were doing the arena thing at a higher level, so I appreciate you.
You heard that, guys? Like, I didn't say that. He said it. Thank you. All right. Thank you for sticking around. Love ya, guys, for watching. I guess I love you too, and happy. Looking forward to seeing you again. So let's try to not make a totally awkward outro. Have a solid day, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye-bye.